Welcome everyone to Rocket Pro's Pro Performance. Today we're going to be talking about building systems that work when you're not working. My name is Mark Mole. I'm a DVP with Rocket Pro. I've been in the mortgage business since the late 1990s, and I'm coming up on 10 years with Rocket Pro. Today I'm honored to be joined by Seraphine Rudarte, Vice President of Operations for Equity Smart Home Loans. Welcome, Seraphine. How are you doing today?
Hi, Mark. I am just so thrilled to be here. As you've already noted, I'm the VP of Operations for Equity Smart. Myself, I've been in the industry for roughly 7 years, and currently we support roughly 550 loan officers across 10 states. And I have to say, I'm really excited about the topic we have for our audience today. So just looking forward to sharing more about this topic.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. Thanks for joining us today. Why we're here today is to learn how we can help support our partners with ideas and tools that can help build systems that work when you're not working. Um, in September of last year, Rocket Pro, we launched our 10 partner promises. These are commitments that we've made. These are real and they're practical solutions that can help fuel your growth with the full transparency that you need. These aren't just words. Whether you're a current partner with Rocket or you're exploring potentially to become a partner with Rocket Pro, these are commitments that we show up with every day to support our partners. Today, we're going to be highlighting promise number 8. Work where you want, close when you're ready. If you have a Wi-Fi connection, you're connected to our platform. Our platform's advanced tech empowers you to work wherever you may want to be. This webinar hopefully will make you promise in real time during your day-to-day operations. The idea is simple, strong, and processes that will operate with flexibility, whether you're remote, whether you're scaling a team and building a team, or just taking time off. You can do it all without sacrificing control. Here's what we'll be able to do by the end of this session. In today's session, you'll walk away with being able to identify bottlenecks, breakdowns in your current workflows, especially when you're not available, apply best practices for building standard operating procedures that support execution, elevate your tech stack and enable flexibility and or adds noise, create a clear workflow that helps your business keep moving when you're not there. Let's start with a real world example. What slows you down when you step away, Seraphine?
Yeah, well, I think for me personally, it's whenever I have to make all these different decisions at one time, right? I think but I think just to make it, kind of more general for, any loan officers or brokers that are listening today, I think a lot of times it really goes back to when decisions stop getting made, and usually it's because like attention's getting fragmented across so many different things, right? And as we all know, there's so many parts to not just the loan process but also just keeping your clients happy, making sure your
Right.
team feels like they have the support they need, and all the other things that happen in life, right? And so I think a lot of times we have like this mental cupboard where we're just kind of like throwing things in there and hoping eventually I'll have time. And sometimes the perfect moment doesn't really surface, right? So I think we hit that kind of like decision paralysis, and we're like things aren't really moving forward.
Right.
I don't know how that's been for you in your experience, Mark, but I've actually seen it, across not just loan officers and brokers, but and a lot of different places to different industries where when decisions stop getting made or we're just kind of on autopilot, we tend to find ourselves on a collision course with some sort of friction ahead.
Right, right. Well said, well said. Um, where would you say business slows down often for a loan officer or broker when you step away?
Yeah. So I think that I would like to kind of go to that idea of like this like kind of feeling of overwhelm and all these different pieces to that loan process, right? I mean, a lot of times loan officers are reaching out to their clients to get new business. They have current clients in their pipeline. They have conditions that they need to clear. For some reason, they're involved in, clearing out conditions, and the list goes on, right? So what happens is that throughout that time, right? I think a lot of loan officers and brokers end up kind of like hoarding a lot of these things to themselves and being like, okay, I need to do it because if I do it, it gets done. Without realizing that in the process of doing that, they're making themselves so instrumental to that system that if they take a vacation, if they step away, things are also not going to get done, right? So I think idea of almost like this mentality of like I need to be the one that does it, I think often is what causes brokers to hit the pause button on being able to grow or scale because they're usually dealing with just in an ever increasing volume of work that doesn't really have an obvious end in
Right.
sight, right? So I
Yep.
think being able to hit that pause button intentionally. And I think, this is not just for brokers or loan officers at this point. This is just for like business in general. Sometimes you need to hit the pause button intentionally, so that way hey, where am I going, and do I want to go there? Right.
Right.
And I think oftentimes we find ourselves a little bit kind of dragged throughout the week in terms of all these other things that we got to do that are in service of, the client or our pipeline. But being able to, I think, take a step back and ask ourselves, well, like, and ask that question honestly, to ourselves, right? I mean, we all have
Yeah.
I think, response to that. What is gonna stop if I don't show up today, right? And then am I just waiting for that to happen, or do I have a plan for that to happen? I think just kind of a little bit of reflection and introspection go a long way in terms of being able to even have the beginnings of a plan there.
Yeah. I think the old adage, right? Like you want it done right, do it yourself. Like that
Hmm.
works to a certain extent, but if you're relying on a team and if you want to have your, the proverbial thumb on your, your finger on the pulse at all times,
Hmm.
you can't step away if you don't have the right processes in place, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And if I can just like make it just a little bit more specific for like a loan officer, you know, it, it's that belief, right? That if I don't do it, it won't get done right. And I think we all have that sort of that thing about us, it has to be our version of it. And if it has a certain, look and feel to it. But that usually, I think, shows up as rechecking every condition, or you have to personally price the scenario yourself, or inserting yourself in parts of the process that really someone else can be doing, but for whatever reason, we're not delegating, right?
Right.
And so I think a lot of times people will then point to like, oh, well, I have a problem with delegation. And I actually challenge those people to go further and ask yourself, is the real challenge clarity? Like, do I know what I'm trying to do here? And what is it exactly that I'm trying to manage through, you know, this sort of control, right? And often I feel like there's a trust component here of like, can I
Yeah.
can I trust other people to do the work? Can I trust the system to really, get it right? And so on, right? But I think being able to like hit that, just like, whoa, let me take that 10-15 minutes and breathe, and then find like really kind of map out what I'm going through, and am I happy with it? I mean, sometimes those basic questions like make all the difference, I think, in being able to create the urgency for that change that we need.
Yeah. Maybe the first step would be like, hey, trust but verify, right? Like
Yeah, yeah,
you don't
yeah.
have to do it yourself, but trust somebody else. And if you want to behind the scenes, you can go do that. So that's more of like on a business level, kind of a
Mhm, mhm,
slowdown. Now
mhm,
let's
mhm.
like on a personal level, like where does your presence matter most day to day? Like what parts of your day require you to be present, would you say?
Ooh. Yeah, no, I love this question because I think it's like a little bit of a curveball slash trick question here, because it's like, wait, we gotta be present every day, right? Like, I mean, I'm here, right? But you know, I like to define presence as not simply about being available, but about protecting the parts of the day that really determine your results and really showing up when it matters, right? And so for me, that typically ends up being the morning where like I am basically making the decision, what am I going to focus on today? What really demands my attention, and what is something that can either be deferred, delegated, or dropped, right?
Mm,
There's like the four D's here that I often go by. The other one is to do. But
right.
I'm making those decisions proactively, so that way when I go through my day and I see the inevitable emails that come out, right? of things demanding my attention, fires over here or what have you, that I still have my non-negotiables that I made that agreement with myself that I was going to move the needle somehow. And so for me, really, being present early in the morning before all the demands of the day are there, it is one of the things that I have incorporated as a ritual. And if you have that going, I think that's great. If not, having some part of the day where you're just checking back in with yourself and asking yourself what you need to do, I think is valuable, just from a, you know, time management perspective, but also just like stress management, because this is a very stressful industry. And
Yeah,
if you don't have the tools for it, right, it can definitely get to you.
yeah, I agree. You have to have this business does derive a lot of mental fortitude, I'd like to say, right?
Yeah,
It's heavy on the mind. So, and to your point, being present, right? Like you have to have a plan, because we all can have that shiny squirrel syndrome, right? Where we're just going
mm,
to be like, here's our plan. You got to have a baseline, because there is going to be inevitably at what you're saying at some point in the day, something is going to derail you, but you got to have that core system of what you want to do on a daily basis and check in with yourself, like you said best. Like, okay, did I get done what are my bare minimums that I want to have done? And those moments of distraction are going to come, but again, being present, I think is crucial, right? To have that mental fortitude. So great, great.
definitely.
Um, there's a couple things that happen also. Like what would you say drags you back online when you're trying to step away, right? You've got that plan, you've got that presence, but what do you see typically as a loan officer or a broker that drags you back online when you're trying to step away?
I mean, I'm just kind of gonna point back to I think one of the other questions, right? Which is like that feeling of like I need to do it myself. But I think it really comes down to like what if I'm clear on what I need to do, right? If I'm clear on what my own horizon looks like for either my files, or any other like responsibilities I need to be meeting, how am I aligning my day, right? And I think a lot of times, I mentioned this actually, like in some of my other, I do these talks with my own company where
Yeah,
it's there's a day by day mentality, which is just like I'm taking it day by day, and there's like a thrive mentality of like, okay, I'm plan or like I'm making tomorrow, right? Making tomorrow versus making it tomorrow. And I think a lot of times people are just kind of like plodding along and like, okay, just taking it a day at a time, and that's fine, right? But being able to generate clarity, I think is something I always go back to. And I think really it comes back to my role in our business is that I am there to generate clarity for everyone, right? If like you don't know what you need to do, like raise your hand, I'm gonna help you. We're gonna solution something out. But being able to do it for yourself is probably one of the most like monumental tasks that anyone can ever give us. Because sometimes it's hard to ask yourself those questions, right? Like, what do I really
right.
need or what do I really want? And to your point, shiny squirrel syndrome, right? Which I think I'm going to use that now in some of my other, internal conversations. But the triple S, right? But um, I think really that happens when you're not clear on what you need, right? When you're not clear on what needs to be done. And to take it a little bit further, I think a lot of times we're willing and able to do things for others in the system, in the business, clients, team members, what have you. But sometimes we just are not clear on what we need in order to show up as our best selves. So, again, you know, what brings you back online? I think everyone's going to have their own version of that because it's going to be dependent on whether or not they have the clarity or they're operating with this vague ambiguity of what's needed of them. And then they're just kind of like plodding along day to day. For some people, that could be, what brings me back online are like fires that I didn't anticipate for, right? And
Right.
sometimes you'll have those, right? But, other things that might bring them back is like a missed deadline, right? Or potentially a process that was never actually mapped out, right? Kind of back to the point I made earlier. If you are doing it all yourself and you're not training the next person, then you are gonna create a situation where you can't really take a day off. And I know there's a lot of people that feel this way because
Right.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of loan officers and brokers, and they're like, I haven't taken a day off in 10 years. And I'm like, I don't
Right.
know
And
if
you
that's
and,
the
and right. And it's definitely not the right recipe. And you lead a
yeah,
lot of people, right?
yeah.
And you want to give them that flexibility and encourage them to take that, you can step away, right? You got
Right,
to have the
right.
right tools in place. And we all will do, I think it's in our personal DNA of like we want to help others. Everybody wants to help somebody, right? And it's like you give that time, but like to what you said earlier about being present, like setting your plan, you can help others, but if you don't have a plan, you're really not going to be effective at kind of helping others, right? I guess
Yeah.
is a good way to look at it. So
Yeah,
um
and if I can just like end on one point actually, just because you made
yeah,
me think
100%.
of it, is like the so whenever PTO, pay time off, right? Whenever someone requests PTO, I have a little acronym which really means PTO means prepare the others, right? Because by the time someone's on PTO, the goal should be don't bother that person, right? And
Right.
I think beyond that, and having the balance, it's a perfect test for you to understand, oh, where are the gaps in my system currently, right? And sometimes people are like, please don't take a break. Please don't like, take a vacation. But truly those like scenarios where someone is, on, leaving for vacation for any amount of time is an opportunity to see your own system and ask yourself, can it withstand someone being gone for a week, 2 weeks, a month? Those are usually indicative of things that we need to work on, and I think quite instructive.
Right. No, I'll borrow that one. I'll trade you the shiny squirrel for the PTO, like prepare the others. That's a great segue. I mean, that creates the clarity, right?
Mhm.
um what would you say changes when your business runs without your constant oversight? I think that might be more of like a personal thing, but what would you say some of the benefits would be of when your business runs without you constantly being involved? What are your thoughts on that, Seraphine?
Yeah, so I find that maybe I'm oversimplifying, but I think that it kind of or there's two main kind of like camps you'll be in. One is that it's something like, and this is the one we want to be in, right? Is actually without constant oversight, it's still working, it's stable, right?
Right.
Hopefully, that's what we want, right? We want to be able to, know that it exists when we're not there, right? And then the other part, which I think a lot of people will find themselves in, is that the business kind of starts to fall apart bit by bit based off of the various ways we've propped it up, usually ourselves, right? And that's because a lot of times we take personal ownership in what we do, right? We like, I own it, I want to do it, I want to make sure it's done correctly and right, and that's perfect, that's great. And yet we sometimes aren't honest about the various ways we prop up the system or our business, where if we're not there, it actually starts to fall apart, right? And I remember reading this long ago. I think it still holds true that one of the main reasons why entrepreneurs fail in their business ventures is because the business cannot exist without them, right? So if the thought leader, the business leader, ultimate decision maker is not there anymore, no one knows how to run the business, right? And so then that's how like those businesses fall apart. And I think it's a good analogy to bring here and just ask yourself, like, if I am not present, will the business collapse, right? Will my pipeline fall apart? Do I have things in place to be able to support
Yeah.
me so that way I can show up as my best self and actually embrace the growth opportunities as opposed to, sometimes maybe not taking them up because implicitly we believe that they are going to come with even more work that's not manageable. So those are things I feel like that deserve to be teased out, and hopefully, I mean, throughout this conversation, people are able to, take some time for themselves and kind of think about the various ways that they are giving it all to the business, but also how can the business give back to them to create continuity?
Right. And that's the competitive edge, right? You may have a secret or you may have the secret sauce that makes a company run, like entrepreneurs and those types, like they may think that their way is the only way. And like you said earlier, like prepare the others.
Mhm.
There's also a saying out there like, are you preparing and are you training your replacement? Are you trying to
Mhm.
teach people to grow and to
Mhm.
take your job and push you further so that if you do step away, that the business does run without your constant involvement? And setting it
Right.
up for success for the long term, right?
Definitely.
So, um, so I mean, that's like in the day-to-day reality of certain things, right? In the
Mm.
long run, why do you think flexibility matters beyond convenience? What would your thoughts be there on that?
Yeah, I think honestly, flexibility is like just essential for survival. You can't be so rigid, right? That you don't acknowledge the reality of what's on the ground. And if I can just like share a little kind of story or
Yeah,
anecdote about
100%.
that, is
Yeah,
that
love to
a,
hear that.
a, a lot of my kind of understanding of like flexibility and sustainability actually comes from my experience as a Peace Corps volunteer, which not like very few people in the industry are aware of. And when they find out, they're like, "Well, you're a Peace Corps volunteer? How'd you make it to mortgage?" Which that's another story. But I was a
Yeah,
Peace Corps volunteer. Yeah, yeah,
that's
go for
great.
it.
Let me thank you for your service and the care and
Thank,
dedication, right? To helping
thank
others. That's
you.
like a selfless act. So thank you for that
Yeah.
service. So thank you. Yeah, love to hear this story.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Kyrgyzstan for it's in Central Asia. Most people don't know where it is, but west of China, south of Kazakhstan. And I was there from like August 2018 to March of 2020. And I was sent there as a teach, like as a TEFL volunteer is what they call them, but we taught English as a foreign language. And we were given very clear goals from our admin, about what we needed to do. We had three projects. One of them obviously was English fluency, and we had other projects on developing the teaching infrastructure in our villages. But the villages were small, like there were 1,000 people, and also you know my village had a different expectation of what success looked like than what I was given, and it was really interesting for me to have to try and reconcile what success was what I was told what success would be according
Right.
to my administration, and then how my village wanted to experience me and then participate in that success, right? And one of the things I learned is that if you're not like co-building this, if you're not co-implementing, if you're not getting buy-in, then you're not going to be able to create anything that outlasts you, right? And the whole goal of what we do as a in the Peace Corps is to create a sustainable project or infrastructure that outlasts the volunteer. We're there for 2 years, but at the end of the day, we leave. We most of the time don't come back. Certainly not to work again in that capacity. So if it doesn't outlast us, then in a way we didn't meet the goal, right? So
Yeah.
being able to be flexible, I think about what I was told versus what really was going to outlast me was something that no one prepared me for. But when I started to live it and understand, what, this has to be a shared vision, that has to be something that we all kind of come to the table and talk about. That's where I realize that that's the true value of flexibility because,
Right.
that flexibility also translates into, social capital. It translates into, actual, downstream impacts for sustainability. And ultimately, creates a framework for other people to model after and say, oh yeah, this is where flexibility can be useful. So that way, the system doesn't break when, it doesn't work a hundred
Yeah.
percent of the time, right? So, I that's what really informed my kind of, I guess ideas of flexibility and sustainability. But I still think it's a valuable parallel to I think what we experience on a more day-to-day level here, right? Which
Right.
is that sometimes things don't go according to the way we planned them out, and that's okay. We plan for those things, and oftentimes just requires us to take in live information and ask ourselves, okay, with the new information that I've been given, what can I do to create that desired
Yeah.
outcome? Yeah, but yeah, I
That's
mean that
great.
at least that's how it feels like for me. I don't know if that's too
No,
niche
but
or
that's you. That's at your core,
yeah,
right? Like to your
yeah,
point, like yes, you're what you were informed of going into it, and then when you're in your village and what matters to your people most, it's about what it's being flexible to their needs, right? It's
yeah,
that somebody may have an idea over here that they don't really know what's going on, you know, feet on the ground kind of approach. So that flexibility is great, So that's impressive. Again, thank you for your service. That's, giving your time back to help others is just a selfless act. So thank you for that. We appreciate
Of
that.
course, of
And
course.
thanks for sharing. I didn't know that. Um,
Yeah, no, a lot of people are like, that's what? How did you make it? And I was like, yeah,
yeah,
I know.
that's great. That's great
Yeah,
though. So and that's great. It's one thing I didn't know about you. So that's, I'll take that at heart, man.
yeah.
Um, what would you say systems wise that make the biggest difference for brokers, right? Bringing that back into the fold here, like,
Yeah.
is there a system that works best for brokers, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think there's like a few pieces to that question, if I can answer it like that. So I think you have a core stack, right, of just things that you need, right? Kind of like just think the materials, right? So, you need a good some sort of point of sale. If not, then you at least need a way to like, take in an application, right? We need a loan origination system. We need a CRM. These are kind of like basics. You
Yeah,
want some sort of compliance, workflow in there, right? And if you're a broker, I'm sure, you already have that. And if you're a loan officer, hopefully the broker you work with has that, right?
that'd be nice,
Hopefully.
right?
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, plug, Equity Smart, we do. Okay, but
There
next,
you go. There you go.
a continuous improvement system, I think, is really important, right? And I think we learned this ourselves, or from ourselves, I would say, is that no one can teach you how to be you. You gotta learn that, right?
Right.
And one of the and also the people that will really help you learn more about what you can become will be your customers. They'll be your clients, right? So being able to actually just have some sort of way to take in feedback and do something about it, I think is huge, right? Because then it informs the other business level decisions, right? So you need to be able to have some sort of I'm not going to say comfortability, but willingness to hear feedback. Sometimes not all the feedback that we want to hear, but even in the sometimes constructive feedback, we get the nuggets we need in order to actually grow.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's the thing. Like,
and
you have to have the core systems, right? That are going
yeah,
to help put. I mean, LOS, POS, CRMs. You got to. There's certain tools. Again, there's a saying out there and technology is there to enhance the experience, not replace
mhm,
it, right? So, with
yeah.
that being said, like, I know, like, how do you avoid overbuilding on those processes? Like, what would you say there from that standpoint of reliance on that technology?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're maybe gonna laugh at me, but I feel like most brokers or loan officers don't suffer from overbuilding on processes so much as they suffer from not having documented processes, right? But and I feel like because I've worked in the broker space for a while, and I mean I don't know if I'll get heat from my own company on this, but I remember when I first started in our business, I was in operations. I was a project manager actually, and I remember I had a few projects going on, and one of them was actually to select a new LOS. And I remember we got like all the way with a few of these projects, and they kind of like fell apart in spectacular fashion. And I would and I you know me, Mark.
Yeah,
I actually don't like that. I was
right, right,
really upset about that. So I was like, you know what? We need to start documenting everything. I'm not even going to change anything. I'm just going to document everything, okay? Because I need to know the logic of how we even got here,
right.
right? And and so I interviewed all the staff. I tried to figure everything out, and before I made any changes, I wanted to understand why these things were the way they are, because a lot of times people, in a business will just be like, it's always been done that way. So, and I never heard any feedback that it was something I shouldn't do, so I just did it, right? And that continues to sometimes be I would say, the logic there.
Yeah,
And I want to say there's going to be a lot of people that resonate with it because oftentimes it's not so familiar for us just to kind of sit down and like document things. It can also be a little boring. There's tools
yeah,
for that. I'll get to that. But let's assume that someone was like, okay, I have all these processes. How can I make sure I don't overbuild them? And honestly, I think it's gonna go back to that old adage, keep it simple,
yeah.
right? Just keep
Oh,
keep it
kiss, right?
simple. Right, right. Keep it simple and make sure that what you're doing when you're building a process is actually relevant and matters for you. Like if you don't work, if your concern isn't in finding more clients, which I feel like we all can do with more clients, but for the
Yeah,
sake of the example, right? Let's say it's like I don't have a problem there, but I don't have a way to train someone on how to take an application and I have a vacation in 2 weeks or a month. Okay, well then, I think, urgency and priority would demand that you probably take care of the latter and you create some sort of way for someone to do that part of the process, right?
right,
And you build from that, I would say. Where are the clear gaps, I think, in the current business, and you build for them first. Otherwise, you're not going to see immediate return on your effort, and you'll kind of fall out of the practice, which it is a practice, right? To actually build a process, it has to be practiced. So
right.
yeah, I think starting from that point would help you make sure that you're keeping it relevant to yourself at the end of the day.
Right. And nobody wants anything to go up in flames in a colossal issue, but I think you said something that was important. Why? Why is it done this way? Like the mortgage industry has been pretty much the same from the last 30 years, you can say, right? But
Right.
why is that? And then that's
Hmm.
where the tech comes in and the enhancements that say maybe we can change it, right? And it's like
Hmm.
a lot of people just say, well, that's the way it used to be, and that's the way it's done. That's,
Hmm.
I think, with the modern world that we're in today, I think that's constantly evolving. So
Right.
that's a great point. And that's the thing. Processes give us a baseline, and then tech can either be there to help with that baseline or it can create noise. So
Hmm.
let's talk about that. I think you guys have some tech that you have at Equity Smart
Hmm.
that I'm going to let you speak on a little bit and tell me
Yeah.
a little bit about it without, just sharing with me what you guys have come up with internally, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, one of the things that we've recognized, I would say, is that as a company, as a broker, we have over 150 lenders that we're approved with, right? And it's
Right,
it's such a nice little thing to like marketing piece to like, say we have all these options, right? And then when like the rubber hits the road, how do you go through all those options? It's so hard, right? Am I gonna spend like weeks trying to, figure out, which lenders I can use for what product? No, what happens most of the time, and it's okay, I'm gonna say the quiet part out loud about this, is that loan officers get comfortable with certain relationships at certain lenders, and they are happy to use the same lenders because they have predictability there. And that's valuable. We want predictability. Obviously, we don't want to use lenders that, we're a little concerned about, underwriting or how they're going to interpret their own guidelines and so on, right? Um, what we did is actually we took our lender list of over 150 lenders, and we decided to use AI to help loan officers reach one, clarity more quickly on the lenders that were available to them, and two, to instigate more curiosity with all the lenders that we have inside of our lender list, for them to be aware of and be like, oh, I didn't even know that this lender is someone that is like a lender I can use and offers even these products, right? And
right,
so we wanted to take this 150 plus lender list and actually make it so that you have 150 options as opposed to really only 3 to 5 options, because that's all the time you're willing to spend on sourcing an option, right?
right,
And so, we just took what was kind of already, I would say, out there, right? AI, I think, is one of the best tools currently, and I think there's a lot of obviously conversation here around, AI and, is AI, gonna replace humans? And I don't think we're there yet. I don't think
right,
that's gonna happen. But in particular, when AI is used as a tool in the tool belt, when it's used as a way to create clarity around all these sorts of options, and when it allows you the a point to go ahead and validate and verify, which is what we've done with our tool, then it becomes very powerful, because what would otherwise take, a loan officer at another brokerage, days, or the other, part of that, scenario is that they're only looking at 2 to 3 lenders. We compress that time for you so that you can actually find the right lender within minutes. And then you can go ahead and validate with that lender and be like, hey, I want to make sure that this is making sense. This is my scenario, blah, blah, blah. And what we're doing on our end is basically taking these moments that are really important for decisioning and allowing you to have the information more quickly. So that way you don't have to look at like a monolithic block of trying to select a lender or trying to get outside your comfort zone. You ultimately have like, all of these different lenders that are truly options and not just options on paper.
Right. And it's like to what you've done, you've taken, it could take days or to try to find different guidelines from this. You're set up with 100 many different lenders
Right.
and institutions, but it all brings it into one spot. And it's like kind of what we talked about earlier, like, hey, AI, I don't think it's like Skynet, it's going to take over the world like in Terminator, but I feel like, if you're not embracing it, you're going to kind of fall by the wayside a little bit. And you guys have done a great job here with using this tool to take a bunch of information and consolidate it down to where it's almost like bite size. And
Hmm.
like we say at Rocket, we gump it down, which means you break it down to the simplest of levels, and
Right.
it's easy for someone to understand. So that's impressive work there. So great job on your guys' end.
Yeah.
Um, that's utterly impressive. Talking about AI, I know we're going to move to another tool that we've discussed for execution, Rocket Pro, right? Not to toot our own horn a little bit, but we've got a Rocket Pro Navigate, right? This is a platform that we have here at Rocket Pro that can help um, with some things, right? So um, it's basically most AI is there to help take a lot of information, I think, and just consolidate it and or help with trying to put out information. Let's be honest, like one of the things that um, we've said is like you don't need to work harder, you need better systems that keep deals and relationships moving even when you step away, right? Post close is one of those examples, right? Most brokers, we know they stay in touch with their clients through the process. And then when the loan closes, they're not really looking in the rearview mirror, right? Um, and the most important piece is staying in touch with your client throughout the process, right? But because there's no system, it becomes inconsistent, it becomes manual, right? It just or just doesn't happen, right? Because again, we're all looking straight ahead. And that's not a motivation problem because everybody wants to stay in touch with their previous clients. It's just that there's a system that doesn't help them with that, right?
Right.
So what I want to show you is building something that's reliable. It works with you. It helps you with your time. It reduces bottlenecks, and it's being consistent. What I'm going to do is talk about something that Rocket Pro Navigate can do, right? So if you go into our portal, click on Rocket Pro Navigate, this is just something that can do, but post close is one of the biggest things. So Rocket Pro, I'm going to ask it to help build me a 12-month post close system that runs whether I'm in the office or not, whether I'm working remote or whether I'm working or taking time off, right? So it's one of those things. So um, it's the control without the micromanagement. Um, so basically, it's a system that does what we need it to do. It's going to give us a script. I don't know if you can if I can hit play on that real quick. As far as like, give me a post close um, system that runs, and what this would take me personally probably way too much time to write, right? But what this is going to do is basically give me a playbook of what I need to do,
Mhm.
touch points for purchase, touch points for refinance. It's going to tell me, should I email, should I text, should I send a postcard, right? I think keeping in touch with your clients is probably the most important thing that we could all do. Let's be honest. Getting a client is hard. Retaining them is even harder.
Right.
So it's one of those things where um, it's just some tool that can consolidate a lot of information. It's something that you can create and something that you can hand off to your team, right? You can say, hey,
Right.
team, this is the play. If you have a processor, if you have a third party processor, these are things that you can say, hey, look, I'm going to what you said earlier, delegate, and here's the play I want you to run, right?
Yeah.
The play may be in my head, but if I don't put it out on paper, if I'm not communicating that to the team effectively, then obviously that play is not going to get ran, and then therefore it's not going to help my clients in the future. So
Yeah, and if I could just like chime in
Yeah,
really quickly, Mark, I think
yeah,
like
100%. Yeah,
one of
please.
the things that I think people just like the listening can do if they haven't tried this yet is just to take something that they have been avoiding or just like is difficult for them to conceptualize a solution to, just a problem
Right.
they're having, and they just type it in and say, give me three ideas on how I can solve this problem. And I love it for this reason because it takes the whole, you know, idea of like, oh, I have a problem and I need to try and figure it out of you, put it somewhere else, and now you get to react to it, right? And I think the big problem that you kind of identified there is when it comes to like the post-close like follow-up and process, the real issue is that this is often we don't have one, right? So if we don't
Yeah,
have one, then we're just kind of working off of memory, right? And then, I mean, obviously we have so much going on in our day-to-days. How are you going to remember all the clients in a way that they feel like, Mark really cares about me. Mark really wants to, see how my kids are doing, as opposed to be
yeah,
like, oh, it's just a birthday. And by the way, when's the last time we talked? Like you don't want to be a by the way, right? So I think just coming in with some intentionality is really
yeah.
good.
And the personal
And
touch, right? Be genuine,
right,
right?
right, right. And I think this, if there's just a little bit more curiosity about how this can help, then you'll be surprised, right? And that's what I love about what you guys did here is that, you're taking something that I think a lot of people are interpreting as, oh, this is gonna take me weeks to figure out. And honestly, we probably did it what, less than
Why
five
we're here,
minutes
yeah, yes, like it,
while
and
we're
it's
talking.
gonna, you're right, and it's gonna give
Yeah,
you like the play
yeah,
by. It's gonna tell you who can do what. It's gonna have assignments. It can ask for a one pager at the end to say, okay, this is the play, this is the script. Again, to your point, we talked about, not sacrificing control. We may have it all in our brain, but we've got to trust the process and trust the system that, if I give the play to somebody else, I can step away and I can work remotely and I don't have to be as involved, right? So
yeah.
it's not about sacrificing control. It's not about the effort. It's just clear systems that help keep the relationship moving, the workflow moving, even when you're not constantly online, right? If you take a vacation and you printed out this play, hey, these are my last 10 clients that I've closed. Can you follow this script of doing these things? It's already there. It's outlined for you, right? So huge benefit there. So what I want to do is bring everything together with a quick review. In today's sessions, we've covered a lot, right? The importance of identifying bottlenecks and breakdowns in your current workflows, especially when you're not available. Secondly, applying best practices for building standard operating procedures that support execution, right? A one pager that you can give to somebody per se to say, hey, please help me execute on this, right? Take some of that load off. Um, Evaluate whether your tech stack is flexible or if it's creating more noise. And then finally, would be creating a clear workflow that keeps your business moving even when you're not there. So those are the kind of things that I hope everyone gathered from this session. Here's what you should do to take action on right after this pro performance, right? I'm going to ask for your involvement here, if you don't mind, Seraphine.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of things I think we talked about earlier was like take 15 minutes and ask yourself, what are you avoiding in your business, right? I think you mentioned it earlier, like write it down. Um, Anything that you can expand on that, you would say, as a kind of like a closing remark to the
Yeah,
session?
I think for that, it's simply like carving out some time and asking yourself, what don't I like about what I'm going to have to do this week? What does that mean for me? What does that mean for me next month? And it's just about introducing awareness. It's kind of like it's like settling down into something that you're gonna hit a fight or flight response. It happens, honestly. But if you're just willing to settle into it and ask yourself, okay, what are the things that I've been okay avoiding, and how do I just introduce awareness around it? And you don't have to, and do it in a way where there's no judgment here, right? Just like, I'm gonna put this on paper, get it out of me, okay? And just acknowledge that these are things that I don't have an answer for. And I want to say to everyone on the call, that's a very human thing. You don't need to have an answer for everything, and that's not the expectation for anyone, right? To know everything. So
Right.
just being able to put that on paper, I think, is a good exercise to being able to have some exposure to the things that maybe we don't want to readily admit, but are there, right? And then as you kind of demonstrated just earlier with Rocket Pro Navigate, and as we kind of did with Equity Smart AI, is just use these tools in a way that helps you just create some momentum through understanding how you could potentially solve for them, right?
Yeah.
And if we eliminate the time it takes to get to step one, that from then to get from step one to step two, then to three, if we just compress, then you will be able to gain the momentum I think that you need to ultimately, you know, I think look at that week in front of you and be like, okay, yeah, there's something to look forward to here. There's something that I'm building here, as opposed to there's something that's controlling me and now I'm getting, kind of like dragged along with it, right? So that
Yeah.
would at least be my commentary there.
Yeah, and I think you nailed it, right? That's step one. Write it down, right?
Mhm.
Like the moment you put pen to paper, I think that's a huge step. Again, you don't have to solve for it, but that's step one. And I think you're a mind reader because it kind of leads me into my next question. Like, put this into an AI model, and then like,
Yeah.
how can I address the pain points? Like, I think you just alluded to it earlier, but
Mhm.
embracing some of that technology to take what you put down. Anything that you would maybe expand on that? I know you probably just answered that a few moments ago, but I think you were
Yeah,
onto
no,
something
I,
wise
I,
there.
I think it's like like, for example, if my issue is, hey, I don't know how to re-engage past my past clients. I'm worried that if I try, they're just gonna give me the cold shoulder. You know, I get it. Rejection sucks. Um, that's also very, very normal, right? But
Yeah,
then just using an AI model, right? Sometimes it feels weird because you're like putting so much information. You're like, please don't ever be, I don't want anyone to look at my AI history. But you
right,
know, um, but putting it into their, that AI model, right? You can just get ideas, right? And that's all they are, right? And so you're able to react to something and be like, okay, yeah, there's something here. I never thought I could, make a cadence to follow up with people and schedule that into my calendar. Like things that may seem intuitive, we just sometimes ignore, right?
right.
And I think just making sure that we're trusting the process, right? It doesn't mean that what comes out of those models we have to follow religiously to a T. I think it does mean, though, that we should employ more curiosity about what a solution looks like, especially if we don't have one yet, just so we can start getting some ideas and
Yeah.
start, to test out what's really going to work for us.
And to that point, I think it kind of leads right into the next question. Like that's what it is. It's ideas. It's thinking differently than what you think. And
Yeah.
sometimes, we all want to be honest with each other. It's like sometimes somebody's got a better idea. And you can do this in the privacy of your own place and not have to be like, oh wow,
Mhm.
that's a better idea than what I have. So and then finally it would be just like it's be curious and commit to a plan, right? Commit to a plan and address one issue holding you back and work on it for 30 days, right? Anything you'd like to add on that? Because I think you nailed it. I think the whole part about getting the different ideas expands your mind, and I think it helps you grow as an individual. So I don't know if you have any final comments on that.
Yeah, I think, all of this is useful, but if we don't do anything with it, then it was just exercise, right? And I think for us, what we really want to do is create something that moves that needle, I think. And it doesn't have to be grandiose. In fact, I tell my staff often, I say, if you're gonna do anything behaviorally different, start small and make sure you can do it every day for like 2 to 5 minutes. Just like something to show up,
Right.
and so, if that means in this case, let's say, continuing to, re-engage some of those past clients, right? Can I spend, 10 minutes just texting a past client of mine, seeing how they're doing? Like something that ultimately I know that I can do and convinces me that I'm willing to see it through. I think that's so important, right? Because when you commit, it's not just committing to a plan, you're committing to yourself. So you got to show yourself that you're going to show up for yourself and see that through. And there's a strong psychological component, I think, to just making sure you're showing up. So no matter what you do, I would just say make it so it's like it's almost impossible for you not to show up in some way. And that's how you get the change that you're after. It's not in these grand gestures. It's inconsistency. So as long as you stay consistent, as long as you stay, committed to, yourself and the why behind the change, then you're gonna get to where you're supposed to get to.
Yeah. And I think you nailed it, right? Be curious, come up with a plan. Those are some great things as far as the whole point of the technology there. You may have thought that was daunting. Like, how do I text my former client, or how do I send out, or what do I say? Right? It's there's just again technology there to enhance the experience and not replace it, but we need to
Yeah.
embrace it a little bit. So no,
Yeah.
you guys have an excellent platform, Seraphin. Um, Lastly, here's what we're going to go coming up on the next Pro Performance. We're going to be taking a little bit of a break next week. Next February 26th, we have our Ignite 26. So if you haven't already registered, please do so. Our next Pro Performance, when volume returns, brokers who win won't be the ones working longer hours, right? It's the whole adage of working smarter, not harder. So what we're going to be talking about is how brokers use the CRM automation to stay visible, they stay responsive and consistent without chasing every lead manually. The webinar is built for brokers who will want to have systems that respond instantly, nurture relationships, and keep opportunities moving when they're busy closing deals. I want to say thank you today for joining, Seraphin. It was an honor. Thank you for sharing me with your wisdom. Hope you had a great time, and thanks for coming.
Of course, no, thank you, Mark, for just hosting and welcoming me onto the pod. And if I can just be so shameless as to plug in for anyone listening, if they're interested in learning more about Equity Smart, please, you can find us on myashl.com. We just love to share our platform, and we love to be with such, great partners like Rocket. So I want to say thank you again, Mark.
No, thank you for the kind words. We appreciate you. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining again.